One of the big headlines today about Russia potentially interfering in our election. And former UN Ambassador John Bolton weighed in on reports that Russia may have done this. Take a listen.
I think that if you're outside the circle of intelligence that's looked at this, it's very hard to know what the answer is. But I think it's at least a question to be asked whether or not this was a false flag operation with some foreign government other than Russia, where a foreign intelligence service conducts an operation and leaves evidence pointing the finger at somebody else.
So, in other words, China might have left fingerprints that look like Russia in the computer.
Exactly, or Iran, or North Korea.
One of the reasons we're having this discussion is there's still a lot of questions. Christopher Swift, a national security studies adjunct professor at Georgetown University, has experience working inside government and obviously a focus on Russia. Kristen, I'm just wondering, what's your take on this whole kind of news hurricane now? What's your read on it?
Good morning, Jenna. Well, look, one of the things we need to do here with this news hurricane is separate the facts that are available to us from the debate we're having about the 2016 presidential election. This isn't about the 2016 presidential election. It's about Russian influence in NATO countries. It's a pattern we've seen develop over the last 3 or 4 years. It started in Eastern Europe. It's spread to our allies in Western Europe, and now we're seeing strong evidence corroborated by foreign source intelligence, by open sources, through signals intelligence from both the CIA and the FBI, indicating as strongly as they possibly can that the Russian government had an interest in affecting the outcome of our election and intervened when and where it could to do so. That's not opinion, that's fact, and if we continue to treat it like opinion, we're likely to play directly into the strategy that the Kremlin has for us.
Why is that? Tell us more about that.
Well, look, the whole purpose, if you look at the Kremlin strategy over the last few years, they've deliberately targeted public officials and public institutions, including the media, in NATO countries in Europe and in the United States as well. And part of what they're doing is sort of gaslighting on a global strategic scale. The idea is to get us to doubt the facts that are available to us, to look for the conspiracy rather than looking to where the intelligence takes us, and to get us so wrapped up in a discussion of whether or not something is true that we're not actually solving the problem. And in this instance, the problem is a foreign government that wants to influence the United States indirectly and directly through third-party proxies like WikiLeaks, through selective disclosures of certain candidates' emails, through, creating innuendo that makes us doubt whether our own government is telling us the truth.
You're hitting, that's exactly how it seems to be playing out. So it's good that we're having this conversation.
That's exactly how this is playing out. And look, Jenna, this is how it played out when the Putin regime took power in Russia. And this is how it's played out in places like Poland and Hungary that have seen sort of a shift, not to the conservative side of the political spectrum, but really a strange shift that's empowered the far left and the far right simultaneously in some of these countries. And when you look at Brexit and what's happening in France and all the rest, there's a broader problem here, and pretending that it's just about domestic politics in the United States really plays directly into the Kremlin's playbook.
Well, then I'm excited to talk to you about how we solve this and how we turn the paradigm so it stops following into this sort of familiar pattern. You have high-ranking Republicans today saying, let's investigate, let's do it, Republican lawmakers. You also have a high-ranking Democrat, though, that had some strong words about ways to address this issue. I want to play some of the sound from yesterday.
Sure.
We've had plenty of discussions both before the election and we've had briefings since the election about the Russian meddling, and there wasn't a bipartisan agreement either before, and I think we are seeing some bipartisan interest in investigating thereafter. But I can say this, there was really nothing preventing the administration on its own from being even more declaratory in terms of what the intelligence showed. And I have been urging the administration to be more forthcoming with the public. I think they still should. And I think we should work with our European allies to sanction the Russians for this behavior.
So again, that's Adam Schiff. He's the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. He says the administration has decided not to utilize them, speaking of tools, in a way that would deter the Russians, and I think that's a problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, when John McCain and Adam Schiff agree on something, when a conservative Republican and a liberal Democrat have the same view about a threat to U.S. national security, that's a time when we need to take the intelligence we have and the tools we have very seriously. And so, look, I think it's fair to say that both Democrats and Republicans were somewhat incredulous about these issues coming into the election in November. There's a lack of awareness about the way that the Putin regime uses these kinds of tools. And look, the Putin regime tries to hide its tracks sometimes when it does. But going forward, the focus can't be about the Trump administration. It can't be about the outcome of the 2016 election. It has to be understanding and appropriately responding to what the Russian government is trying to do, not just to us, but to our allies overseas.
Okay, so let's do it. What's the one thing we have to do today within our power to address this issue?
Well, there are a couple things that we can do straight away. The first would be, as Adam mentioned and as Senators McCain and Graham have mentioned, expanding the sanctions against Russia, not rolling them back. The second would be targeted prosecutions of individuals and organizations in Russia that are used as third-party proxies to carry this kind of strategy forward. And the third is bilateral discussions with our Russian counterparts to make it very clear that we see this as a threat to national security, that we're not going to be gaslighted on a strategic level, and that we will use the instruments available to us in our national security arsenal to protect ourselves and our allies going forward, just as we would if there was an economic or a military operation underway.
You're saying clandestine operations.
I'm saying it is time for the United States to stop thinking that it can accommodate bad behavior out of Russia. The last administration did that. The George W. Bush administration did that. It's time for the grown-ups who understand how this regime operates and how this regime gets us to second-guess ourselves about the world as we know it. It's about time those folks came to the table and had a serious discussion about how we're going to manage this relationship, not how we're going to accommodate a regime that isn't interested in accommodation and is completely interested in disruption.
I'm so glad you pointed out that both administrations in the past, decade have dealt in similar terms with Russia, and one of the questions we're asking on this program and others is, do we like the results? How do we turn it? Chris, it's great to have you as part of that discussion, and we look forward to having you back always. Thank you.
A pleasure, Jenna.